We got the matchup preview, Eagles Buccaneers week 4. Also going to dive a little bit into some of the decision making. Nick Sirianni, who's at fault? Jalen Hurts turnover machine. Can we get that cleaned up? A lot to get into tonight on the AATBirds Inside Swoop. Here we go.
He looks right, he fires, and it's intercepted! It's intercepted! It is intercepted by the Eagles! What a play! Snap. He's back, he's gonna run. He's in! Touchdown! Jalen Hurts! 20. Westbrook takes it. Looks for running back. Up to the 25, the 30, to the 35-40, 45 midfield, 45-40, 45-40. Brian Westbrook! He's going! He's going! Touchdown! 15-10! The Eagles win! The Eagles win! The Eagles win!
It's all birds, all the time.
How about them Eagles?
And how about them Eagles? So the Eagles get a win. I can't even talk. Get a win again.
No, you're already in Halloween mode. They get the win. Now they have two wins.
One, two. So I do want to talk briefly because you weren't on the post-game recap with Bauer and I. So going to get a little bit of your thoughts because we have to kind of talk a little bit about what's going on in Philadelphia with Nick Sirianni's decision making, his what he's seeing, what he's doing. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. Going to talk a little bit about that. And got some injuries. Definitely going to bring that up as we go into the matchup preview with the Buccaneers. And both teams are pretty beat up. And the Buccaneers struggled last week, losing to the Denver Broncos. So there's a lot in the NFL. Nothing makes sense, and that's just what it's going to be, especially the first month and a half of the season. So, but Chip, I want to bring it up to you. Mike and I talked about the game. I kind of went into it. Loved what we saw from the defensive side of the ball, and how they adjusted and how they came out and able to control the game and the way that they stifled the New Orleans offense. So let me get your thoughts on that game. And I know there was, a little bit of back and forth you had, but what's your thoughts from that game? Eagles do improve to 2-1, but
again, the moral of the story is they got the win. Once again, it was an ugly win. They probably shouldn't have won. I'm pretty sure that they won that game in spite of Nick Sirianni. And it reminds me of when people like Chip Kelly were trying to be the smartest guy in the room and making decisions that were just like that the other 31 coaches would be like, I'm not going to do that. Nick Sirianni made so many poor choices on Sunday. It actually boggled the mind. He won't kick the 20-some yard field goal. We don't get points, but then he's going to go for the 60-yard field goal. I'm not sure what that is. There were so many things that happened, and I'm just watching this game going, what are you trying to accomplish here? What are you trying to accomplish here? You did not utilize Saquon Barkley at all in the first quarter. If I'm correct, and Johnny, you're my stat guy, 0 carries for 0 yards in the first quarter. Is that correct?
Yeah, because he had 4 for 17 in the first half. So
yeah, he did not get handed the ball in the first quarter. And then obviously he went off. He is the NFL's league leading rusher. And we've talked about this a lot because as injuries pile up, and we saw the right side of the offensive line get a lot of injuries, right? We saw 2 guys go down, and they brought in 2 guys on the right side. And both of them, I'll actually say, did a pretty damn good job, which was nice. But we've discussed that when you have uncertainty along the offensive line, the safe move is to run the ball. Run blocking is easier than pass blocking. We know this to be true because it's an attack rather than a defend. And with the struggles that Jalen Hurts is having so far this season, and I don't want to say he's a turnover machine. I just want to agree that he's not playing as smart as he should be. Rely on your other weapons. You're already down A.J. Brown. So you saw Dallas Goedert finally step up to be the tight end that everybody describes him to be. If that's the tight end we're going to get, I love it. I love it. I will eat every word I've ever said about Dallas Goedert. because he did make the plays. Yes, he had, sure enough, his one drop, the one that he could have caught and didn't. But besides that, he was destructive, and it was a beautiful thing to watch. But for Saquon Barkley to not touch the ball was insane. It was absolutely insane.
So I also want to bring up too, I want to get your feedback on this. And, looking at everything that happened, I want your take on everything that, we talked about last week. And you can kind of mix it into the defensive performance, but also what we're seeing from the free agent additions, or what we're not seeing from the free agent additions. Devin White, healthy scratch again. We had Bryce Huff only play, I guess was 12 snaps or 13.
I think it was 19.
8, yeah. And it was only on like 5 or 6 run plays. I want your feel on that. And then, we'll get into the matchup preview and everything.
Yeah, I mean, the free agent acquisitions, they have not been doing enough. There's no doubt in my mind. We can start with the ones that are, Zach Bond is doing, he's doing a phenomenal job. I love, no, turn your camera off. That way I can stay. That's fantastic. No, because I didn't realize it was going to be. That was great.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Great.
I'm not doing that though.
All right. Now go with you on you. So Zach Bond is, if he continues to play this way, in my opinion, could work himself some sort of an extension. But I heard what you guys were saying on the post-game show, and it was definitely along the lines of, well, how he's getting away with, once again, not drafting linebackers, and how he's getting away with, doing the bare minimum. But Zach Bond is doing an incredible job. He's a young guy. If he keeps playing at this level, keep it up. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is doing an amazing job. Saquon Barkley is the league leading rusher in the NFL right now. And part of that's because you've got a lot of injuries. But again, he's just dominant. He's never played behind this kind of line before. Everybody else, right? CJ Gardner-Johnson did a good job, but for the fact of pass coverage, right? We know that he can tackle because he's going to throw his body at things. But again, he's getting beat on some of these plays. You continue down the line. The Bryce Huff signing is really starting to not look great. He's gotten no pressure, and again, even Josh Sweat had no pressure this game. Luckily, our defensive tackles were destructive this past weekend, which that's what we expected them to be. But in reality, Bryce Huff is not doing nearly enough. And because of that, he's not finding any time and space on the football field. As the season goes on, I don't know what that looks like. As players start to drop over the next couple of weeks, look, I still think that Kenny Pickett could be, somebody that gets traded because he's just sitting on our bench. People seem to think very high of Tanner McKee, and Johnny's about to pop back in the frame right as I say Tanner McKee. It's like he timed it perfectly. I was just saying along the lines of we're getting into the time where you could see those quick trades here and there. Bryce Huff has not done anything that makes me impressed. You see quarterbacks dropping across the NFL left and right. Kenny Pickett is a trade target as far as I'm concerned if I'm running an NFL franchise, if you still want to be competitive.
Yeah, but the whole trade aspect and stuff, like, to me, if Devin White's another scratch, if he's another healthy scratch again this year, you may not get anything for him. You may have to just release him. Like, is he going to be this year's Rashad Penny? Because it just seems like, is he not good enough to? Well, I guess he doesn't play special teams, so to have him on the basically on the bench doesn't really help you really in any phase of the game if he's not playing on defense. If someone is not hurt,
but what you do see is him at least on the sideline being active. Right?
Yeah, I get
you see him coaching the players up. So a lot of the conversation before was, well, Devin White has a bad attitude. No, he wants to be on this team. It's just that he doesn't have a place on this team right now.
My only thing is this. If, say, for some reason Nakobe Dean gets hurt and Devin White has to
need him. You need him.
Devin White gets in there and he plays, or he has to start the next game and plays, and he looks phenomenal. Then what is that going to say? Is that going to be the whole, remember last year, week 1, Kenny Gainwell was the starter. Then he got hurt.
Shouldn't have been.
He got hurt late or whatever it was, and DeAndre Swift had to play, and he played in that Minnesota game and went absolutely off. Did he have too many carries? Maybe, just because he was basically the only running back. Him and Rashad Penny got a carry, and then he didn't do so well. They took him out, and you didn't see the likes of him again. But that stuff's interesting. Like the Bryce Huff being kind of limited now and being rotational. You have Nolan Smith playing. You got Josh Sweat. You got Brandon Graham.
But
they're doing some
outside of Brandon Graham. Outside of Brandon Graham, you're mentioning that they're playing. I simply mentioned that they're on the field. I don't qualify what this is as playing.
The one thing with Nolan Smith, he looked really good against the run, which is good. You want that. You need some more pressure. We know that the edge rushers need pressure. I was listening to someone, they were talking about the Eagles edge rushers, and aside from the playoff game last year, the last time in the regular season an edge rusher got a sack was week 13 against the Dallas Cowboys when Hassan Reddick had 2, which is
Let's just bring Hassan Reddick back then.
It's crazy to think about because it's been so long, but it's going to be interesting to see, because if they keep struggling, especially if they struggle against the Buccaneers, who their offensive line isn't great. They have a good offensive line, but it isn't great whatsoever. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. And even looking at them, and you look at the Eagles injury report, we know the injuries they had in the game against the Saints, and with the bye week coming up next week, that we're in this scenario of, does Devontae and Lane Johnson play? I don't think so. With concussions, they're tough, because usually basically whoever has a concussion, it's hard to kind of go through the protocol and pass it. What I'm thinking what usually happens with concussions is the player sits out a week, and then we'll play the next game. And with them having the bye week next week, it makes me think those 2 guys will not be active come game day on Sunday.
And so the other thing that is concerning is how severe those concussions looked. So obviously the Lane Johnson one didn't look bad, but for him to be vomiting violently like he was, I mean, he clearly has himself a problem, right? So again, I could see them sitting him out. The Devontae Smith one, I mean, that was one of the dirtiest hits I have seen in a couple of years. Ever since that they really have been trying to crack down on a lot of the headshots and the targeting and the things like that. I mean, that to me was clear-cut targeting. Yeah, and for the NFL to levy down a $4,600 fine on him, throw his ass out of the game. That was, and Teal and I were talking about this, one of the most one-sided officiated games that I have ever sing. There was holding on every single play, and the Saints did not get called on a single hold. Not one.
Yeah, it was pretty blatant when you looked at some of the plays, and a couple. I think Bauer, I was texting with him, and he said, does New Orleans have a penalty at all yet? And it was just like, thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? I don't know if they do. And if they do, it's probably like very minute one. But yeah, look, you have a guy in Christian Boyd, a almost 300-pound defensive tackle, going full speed at a guy with his arm pinned, has no way to kind of protect himself, gets blasted. When he's going backwards, his forward progress has been stopped, and he's being...
And that's on the refs for not blowing that whistle. That's on the refs for not blowing that whistle, too.
No, it is.
No, and they got penalized a total of 3 penalties for 25 yards, 15 of them for that hit.
That wasn't a penalty, though.
You're right. It should have been. I apologize.
So
it was a fine, not a penalty.
Not a penalty.
No, he didn't. One of them got the penalty for...
It was Penning who blocked Slay out of bounds all the way into the bench. So...
Which also could have hurt him. Like, it was dirty. It reminded me a lot of some of the old Saints stuff where they got roped into the bounty gate situation. It was ugly.
Yeah. Listen, I agree with you. And it sucks because I think Devontae and Lane both don't play this week, especially with you have the bye week next week. You give those guys 2 full weeks of being able to, get prepared for Cleveland come week 6.
Right.
And another thing is AJ Brown didn't practice again. Do you think that they risk it and have him try to play this game knowing you have the bye week? Again, I'm not very sure if he's good to go, if he feels good and he tests it out and everything's okay. Potentially I could see that, but the way everything lines up and the way it was kind of said on Monday Night Football last week against Atlanta and how they said he'd be a couple weeks, to me, I think that he sits out this week too, which means, you have some problem. Not, I wouldn't say, yeah, you know what? They have problems at receiver because when you look at who you have, because Britton Covey breaks his shoulder, basically has a break in his shoulder. So he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. I believe they said was the time.
He's on IR.
He's on IR. They elevated Jack Stoll to the 53-man roster. So no more bringing up tight ends from the practice squad, which you think about it is smart because they're going to have to go to the 2021 style of offense that they had and were running was run the ball and basically short passes. You're going to have to use Dallas Goedert, especially against, and the biggest thing is this, against the Tampa Bay defense and Todd Bowles, who like to play up on you, like to play man. They like to get in your face. The corners are very sticky. You're going to have Jahan Dotson, Johnny Wilson. You're probably going to have to call up 2 receivers from the practice squad, whether that's going to be Paris Campbell. Do they call up a John Ross, who they brought back to the practice squad this week? Or do they go with a Kyle Phillips or a Danny Gray? So there's options, but I think 2 receivers get called up because you need to have as many bodies as possible in the receiver room, just because just in case any other injuries.
There's a lot to what you've said. So let's break it down. So the first off is, do they risk the Devontae Smith? I do not think they do.
No, I don't see him.
It was a really, really ugly hit. I do not see them rushing him back. Mm-hmm. So that's point number 1. AJ Brown, I could see them really kind of saying, hey, look, we need you on the field now. Like, we know you're sore, but we need you on the field now. I think if there's any way that he can go, he's got to go because you don't want Jahan Dotson as your number 1 receiver. He hasn't done much. You don't want to go into a game against a team like the Bucs with Johnny Wilson, Paris Campbell, Jahan Dotson.
Call the corpse of Julio Jones.
John Ross, whoever it is that they have, because the Bucs are a team we struggle against anyway. The Bucs are a team that we struggle against anyway. And every single time I'm like, oh, that Bucs team is going to be. Baker Mayfield looks phenomenal right now, which is.
Well, he didn't look phenomenal last week against the Broncos, but.
I'm aware he's one of my fantasy quarterbacks. I had to use him when Tua got knocked in the head. Speaking of retiring from football again.
Yeah.
But if AJ Brown can go, you need him to go because look, Dallas Goedert had an amazing game. Saquon Barkley, league leading rusher. I love all of these things, but you absolutely have to get more. You have to get more because what's going to end up happening is, say you roll in without AJ Brown, say you roll in without Devontae Smith, say you roll in without Lane Johnson. First off, you're going to run the ball a ton, which is ideal. But my problem with it is that you're going to run the ball too much with Jalen Hurts. You're going to switch back to that option style of offense, which is great up to a point, except Todd Bowles is an incredible defensive coordinator. Give him a quarter of that. You might get a couple touchdowns, and that's it. You might get a touchdown or 2, and then you're not scoring the rest of the game unless you switch up. And we have seen that Nick Sirianni is very set in his ways. I don't know what Kellen Moore is, what say he actually has right now, but it's a mess. Like, the offense is a mess. Considering all the weapons and everything we have on that offense, it is a mess.
I wouldn't say it's a mess. You had 460 yards of offense,
But
against the
15
Saints,
points. But 15 points.
but you're still moving the ball. A mess would
Which
be
is
3 and out,
great.
not moving the ball.
And our defense looks incredible. I have not talked nearly enough about the defense. Same thing, that bend don't break mentality. But they, I don't know how the Eagles maintain this all season. So just talking about the NFC East, right? Just talking about the NFC East, the Commanders look really damn good with Jaden Daniels. The Cowboys look like crap. The Giants look like crap. I have to go on an NFC East podcast.
Listen.
But Jaden Daniels looks damn good.
Their defense don't look damn good. And Jaden
I don't
Daniels
need the defense
scored 38, 39 points against Cincinnati defense, who are on their fourth and fifth string defensive tackles.
You're right.
You gotta be real a little bit. You can't get
right.
over.
But again, this Eagles team has their first string a lot of players, and they are doing the job.
Let me ask you this. What's going to happen when Jaden Daniels takes the wrong hit? Because he takes too many hits. Michael Vick took too many hits. What happened to
Vick
him?
early in his career? So did Cunningham early in his career.
Lamar Jackson has been hurt.
Lamar Jackson, so does. I mean, yes, all these running mobile quarterbacks have to get better at not getting hurt. We know this.
Did he have a great game? Absolutely. He played way beyond what some people thought he was gonna this early. He's playing great. Don't get me wrong, but that team has a lot more problems, and they're in rebuilding. They're not expected to be the Houston Texans of last year or expected to be a playoff team. They're just expected to improve and then improve, and just basically they're turning over that team, that franchise, everything there. So again, we'll see what it is, but
the confidence that I had about this Eagles team 3 weeks ago is definitely dwindling.
But here,
I'm starting to think that it is Nick Sirianni.
This is what I'm gonna.
I don't want to fire him. Correct. I do not want to fire Nick Sirianni. What I'm saying is that somebody has got to teach this guy to just coach football. Don't try and outsmart everybody. Just coach football.
So, to me, the Saints game had a lot to do. Remember in 2021, Nick's first year, they played the Carolina Panthers, and we actually had a live show over at the West End in Quakertown. We were, doing a pregame show for that, and I forget what the Eagles' record was. I think they were 1-3 at that point. And we talked about it and how, hey, the Eagles need to. They may be able to win, and they were struggling. They weren't playing very well, and I don't think that was the game where the play calling was shifted over to Shane Steichen, but they were able to win, and then they started to turn that season around. They snuck into the playoffs. My only thing is you can't have games and mishaps not taking points when, one, you're on the road, two, and that's where it comes to Nick Sirianni. He's got to be smarter at that, because unfortunately,
take the points. You should have learned that lesson last week when you didn't take the points.
My feeling is this. Unfortunately, I think basically he's in a situation here where his back's against the wall, and I'm not so sure he's able to weather the full storm. And it sucks to say that, just because, what he's done, like his record and everything as an Eagles head coach.
It's great.
You're going to have to really show out, and you're going to have to be able to have this team win games and stay on a successful roll and not go into a lull like you did last year. But again, that's time will tell.
But part of that is these games and winning this way over and over again and losing the way that they do over and over again. Part of the problem is that it takes an exhausting schedule and makes it more exhausting. If every single game is a battle down to the last possession, by week 9, 10, 11, you are mentally fried. At some point, you have to have not even a dominant win. You've got to have a no doubt win. A win that going into the fourth quarter, you don't take your foot off the gas, but you're not going to lose. And we haven't had that in almost a full calendar year.
Yeah, I think it's been some time. So, hopefully we see it soon. And, looking at this game coming on Sunday, you have a team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who were pretty much embarrassed by a 0-2 Denver Broncos team at home. And now they get the Philadelphia Eagles coming in, and we'll
A
see what
team
happens.
who they normally do pretty damn well against.
Yeah, well, last year they did beat them 27-11 at Monday Night Football. Week
I'm
3.
talking about the playoffs.
Okay, well, it's not the playoffs, so it may be pretty good for the Eagles then if it's not the playoffs. So
All right.
again, I want to bring this up to you. Looking at the NFC, okay,
Yeah.
the 49ers are 1-2, a litany of injuries.
And broken.
So let me go like this for you. Looking at these teams, the Eagles beat the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers look pretty good with Malik Willis. They won the game. It's clear cut there. Like when you look at contenders or teams that have playoff aspirations in the NFC, Green Bay Packers, the Eagles beat them.
Yep.
You can't say that the Eagles can't beat them because they did it.
Yep.
So you look at a team like the 49ers. Are they somewhat similar, neck and neck? Those two teams are both really talented. Yes, but to say that you can't say the 49ers are well above what the Eagles are, because honestly, right now that's not true.
For Christian McCaffrey to be seeing a Achilles specialist
In
Germany, it says a lot more to me that like he might be done for the year.
Yeah, you look at, they're playing. They beat the Saints. Who are the Saints? We don't know what team is it. Was it the first 2 weeks or was it the team the Eagles played? So,
and that's the thing. The Saints, the first 2 weeks looked incredible, and then last week they just didn't.
You look at the Minnesota Vikings. They're 3-0. Sam Darnold's their quarterback. They're 3-0. They play the Green Bay Packers this week. We'll see more about them, as the season goes on. You look at a team like the Detroit Lions. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's still a good roster, though.
Oh no,
that's a good roster. That's a hungry team.
It's still a good team, but my emphasis on saying some of these teams and talking about like Seattle Seahawks are 3-0. St. Louis. There is no St. Louis. The Los Angeles Rams. They struggled and then got all these injuries, and then they beat the San Francisco 49ers. Arizona played well against the Rams, then they lost. So there's a lot. I think when you look at the NFC, and we said it kind of last year too, it's really up in the air with who is what. And that's
the NFC. Yeah, the NFC right now.
AFC's the same way. I will.
AFC's the same way. And Adam's comment is pretty on point, right? It's week 4. We have no clue who's serious and who's not. That is for all 32 teams.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. It seems, I mean, for the Ravens to start now, 1-2, that's a team that was going to the Super Bowl. For the Bengals to be 0-3, 1-3, 1-2, what the hell are they?
Bengals are 0-3.
0-3. Again, that's another team that was, going to be in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs haven't looked very chiefly, but they've done what they needed to do with the help from the referees. So I think that the NFL right now, you're seeing a lot of teams beating the hell out of each other. You're seeing players early go on the injured reserve so that they can be back for the meat of the season. The meat of the season from about week 7 on is going to be where we really see the teams for who these teams are.
But again, you don't want to be putting yourself in a 0-2, 0-3, 1-4 hole. That's not something that I know there's an extra wild card spot, but that's not something you want to do. Because I know if the Eagles would have lost last week and then lose this week and go into the bye at 1-4, there's no confidence at all. And there are people asking,
even if they go into 2-2, even if they go into 2-2, I think that Philadelphia is going to be up in arms for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think so. But if you told someone after the Atlanta game that if the Eagles were 2-2 by the bye week, would you be okay and satisfied with that? I think a lot of people said that they would be okay with that. If they go 3-1, hey, that's great. But again,
I mean, I had them going 4-0 going into the bye. So,
well, can't always get what you want. So,
but if you try sometimes,
That is true. That is
Get
very
what
true.
you need.
So, looking at last week and our picks and our Ulecka locks, your pick was right. You picked the Eagles. I picked New Orleans. So, but then when we look at the locks, you and I both were correct.
Mine was a little more on a limb, though. Mine was a limb.
Yeah, yours was a little bit tougher than mine. Mine was just Dallas losing to Baltimore. I just didn't see Baltimore go 0-3, and I was right. You had Dalton beating the Las Vegas Raiders.
I sure did.
Well, good for you. Well, that brings us to this week, and it brings us to our Ulecka locks for this week.
It's time for the Ulecka locks of the week. Who's your lock?
Alrighty. Now we get into the locks for this week. And I'm going to let you start it here since you had the crazy lock for last week.
That was phenomenal. Is it safe to lock that the Cowboys are going to beat the Giants? Can I do that? Is that too easy?
That's too easy.
Too easy. All right, so scrolling just real quick through this slate of games. None of them are really jumping out at me.
I'll let you think because I'll give mine because I already have mine.
Yeah, give yours because I'm torn between a couple.
My lock here, Saquon gets another touchdown.
Now I'm taking the Cowboys to win. Come on now, that's easy.
Not necessarily because remember,
if they're down all their offensive weapons, come on.
The tush push, you can always have Jalen scoring the rushing touchdown. It happened the last 2 years.
Put some thought into it. Come on.
Well, he gets 2 touchdowns. There you go.
Okay. Are you locking it?
Yep, I'm locking it. Now it's your turn.
All right. I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna double down on Dalton. The Dalton double down. The Dalton double down says he becomes 2-0 as the Panthers quarterback.
Wow, Dalton wins again.
The Dalton double down.
All righty. So now we have the Dalton double down. Brings us now to the Eagles pick.
You were wrong, so you have to go first.
Okay. So I have the Eagles. Eagles, defensively still standing strong. It's not going to be as high scoring, but I have the Eagles winning 24-17.
Oh, okay. For the first time in 2024, I am a little low on faith on my birds. I'm high on hope, but low on faith. I have the Buccaneers winning.
Okay.
That hurts. 24-21.
Hey, I did it last week, so maybe it'll work the opposite this week, and you will be wrong, and I'll be right.
I think the injuries are too much. I think Todd Bowles has our number as far as how to make Jalen Hurts uncomfortable when the games really matter. And the Bucs that's a loaded roster. I know we didn't really spend a ton of time talking about the Bucs.
But they also have a lot of injuries. So
they do have a lot of injuries. You're absolutely right. But I look at, okay, you got Mike Evans on one side. Mike Evans is a top 3 wide receiver in the league, if you ask me. And then Chris Godwin, he's not that far off. You've got a left tackle in Tristan Wirfs who is not going to let our pathetic pass rush get to him, get to anybody. Cade Otton's a decent tight end. He's going to do okay. And you've got Baker Mayfield who just doesn't give a crap. He's going to do whatever he wants.
The problem is their running game. If they're not able to run the ball, you're not going to be able to rely on Baker Mayfield.
Agreed, but here's the thing. Even if they're not able to run the ball, that means that our pass rushers have got to get home, and I've yet to see our pass rushers get home, and that's problematic.
Yeah, listen, we're going to see what they have. It's going to be a tough game. It's not going to be easy. You're going to be in.
It's not going to be an enjoyable game.
The warm weather in Florida, so we'll see what happens. We hope for the best, and then the Eagles get their bye week, kind of recuperate. But But
as we begin Red October.
For you guys, yeah, absolutely. But with that, as we always end it, go Birds.
Go Birds. Ring the bell.
This is Matt Ware. Hey, for all the Eagle content you need, go follow All About the Birds. They do a damn thing. Check them out.
Hey, Eagles fans, I may be in Tampa, but I know where to find the best Eagles content out there. Check out my friends at All About the Birds.
Philadelphia, what's up? This your boy Freddie Mitchell, a.k.a. Fred X. It's all about the bird.
All birds all the time. All birds all the time.
All About the Birds provides you with weekly analysis, game recaps, informative interviews, and it's all birds all the time.